Yo guys, what is up? Welcome back for yet another episode of the Off Grid podcast. God, it's good to have you guys back. Now this week is with our special guest, Mr. Josh Dickson. He is a trauma and positive psychology therapist and founder of Resurface, which uses science-backed surf therapy and EMDR to help people. In this conversation, we talk about how flow states cause therapeutic change within us, Josh's own experience of childhood abandonment trauma at boarding school, how EMDR and Blue Health significantly help people, how past trauma becomes stored within our body, and my own experiences through Vipassana meditation, and strategies for entrepreneurial mental health. Hope you guys absolutely love this episode. It's a wonderful explanation of how two worlds can merge from clinical psychology and surfing, and what Josh is doing with Resurface is freaking awesome. Hope you guys love this one. On with the podcast. Josh, welcome to the Off Grid podcast.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me. It's going to be a great opportunity to talk about flow and other things too.
Mate, it's a pleasure. And one thing you said where I wanted to kick off is that we can't think our way out of trauma, but we can act our way out of trauma. How did you come about making this distinction throughout your career as a psychologist?
That's a really great question, actually. So it's just from hard-born experiences. I've had so many people coming to me thinking that they can think their way out of their problems. And cognition, thinking, is absolutely crucial part of being a human. For survival, it's what separates us from the animals. It's what enables us to build computers and the houses and all. And it's one of the most important things there is. But it's within a specific kind of context. When you're dealing with what we call traumatic data, or what some people call dysfunctional memory networks, or just like bad stuff in the brain that like is troubling and hasn't been what we call fully processed, you can't think your way out of that because the material is in the wrong part of the brain. So that's what I mean by that. So you can try and think your way out of something as much as possible, but it's not going to shift the symptoms until you create the conditions to be able to do that safely. So that's really, I mean, it's a good little soundbite because it catches people's attention. But going into it is like a bit more complicated, but it's going to be true. Basically, it's just saying that you can't like say to yourself, be braver, be braver, be braver. Or you can't just tell yourself, stop reacting like that when girls talk to you. Because often these things, or stop going red. Why do I keep going red when someone asks me to speak in a business meeting? If I just keep thinking about that, I'm going to stop myself. And it doesn't work like that. You have to act. And sometimes that act is picking up the phone and getting therapy. It doesn't, when I say act, it doesn't mean like pretend you're in theatre. It means like you just have to do things. And often it requires the collaboration of someone else. Hope that makes sense.
Absolutely does. And you've also spoken about this idea of talk therapy, sometimes hitting a dead end for some people. As far as thinking and talking goes, what is it that happens for some people where they feel like they've hit a dead end?
Well, it's often to do with the nature of the material you're trying to work through. So like traditional talk therapy is fantastic for so many things. But it's not, this is all within the world of trauma. It's not good for trauma. What often people find is actually when people, because there's this notion out there in society that, oh, we really need to talk things through, or you really need to let this out with someone, or you really need to go and talk to someone about this. Now, if it's to do with depression or issues in a relationship or sorting out your tax affairs or whatever, yeah, you do need to go and talk to people about it. But when it comes to trauma, and particularly PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, often what can happen with people, particularly if it's quite severe, is that talking about it re-traumatizes that person. So they often end up feeling worse And so because they have an experience of feeling worse having talked about it, when we say people, reach a dead end with it, often it means is they've stopped talking about it. They don't want to talk about it. They've blocked that out. And for actually very good reasons, they just don't know why. But once you understand that you're dealing with something that's with material that's sort of trapped in the wrong part of the brain and needs shifting, it begins to make sense. But really, a lot of that dead end is people just shutting down because they don't want to keep having negative experiences every time they go there.
And in your career as a psychologist, am I right in thinking you got to a point yourself where you felt like more needed to be done? Like there was something even after the conversation that was missing? And if so, how did that kind of lead you into this transition into founding Resurface and
Yeah,
discovering the role of action?
yeah. So I noticed that like a few things, and then when I delved into it, people were able to like put words or explain things that I had been thinking about for a while. But like I noticed that, and this was Martin Seligman's great breakthrough work, is that if you if people are say like not born, if people find themselves like really depressed or just in a really negative space, the belief was for a long time that if you fix someone's depression, you fix the issues that are going on, then they will be happy. But what they found, this is Seligman's thing, is he just found that people just weren't depressed anymore. There was a presumption that you had to go that flourishing would accompany the reduction of negative symptoms, but actually just found that people were kind of just at base zero. And so he was saying that we need to study flourishing people to really understand how people can flourish. And he's totally right. I mean, that's the basis of any scientific discovery. But I was just noticing that, when particularly with trauma treatment, that we had to be giving people things to look forward to help motivate them to change. It wasn't just about saying, "Oh, I'm just gonna, we're gonna stop the nightmares or we're gonna stop the things." It's like, let's help people create or guide people to a place that's going to, as I said, motivate them to get there. And then I discovered the whole world of positive psychology, and that was the big game changer. So like all my work is about getting rid of the stuff from the past, while at the same time helping people, motivating them to a place in the future. And I find that that second part was missing in a lot of people's processes. And so I really discovered the works of Martin Seligman, Haley Csikszentmihalyi on flow, um, Stephen Kotler's great work in flow as well, and a whole host of other people who've been like really seminal in that area. And I was also learning that that flow states, something we'll come to, like which come from action in general, do amazing things to people's brains, and they help enhance and cultivate therapeutic change. And so that and it was from that, and it was also from not anecdotal, but just for what I witnessed. I just noticed that when people started playing football, or people started joining the gym, or people started running again, or even just walking, profound shifts in their mental health improvements started to occur. So it wasn't just like, oh, I learned the theory and then set up this new way of working. It was, I'd seen what was working for other people, integrate that in, fine tune it, keep doing what I'm doing, add a bit more. And then and then really discovered in depth the whole world of flow, which is like one of my favorite passion projects now. Just I could talk about it forever, but integrating that into kind of therapeutic work, a bit like how the coaches have been doing it with business, is what really led me to setting up what I do now and with Resurface.
Obviously, flow is a massive part of surfing as well. Like I can really relate to that because I used to skate and I've done a lot of
Yeah,
sport and I'm really into my trekking. And I think all of us who have done like some form of physical activity, I mean, yeah, even if it's just PE at school, we can all relate to that sort of that sense of flow. It might even be music or some form of
yeah.
creation.
Well,
What is it that
yeah, I was going to say, like when you were saying that, like most people get into flow through physical activity, but actually you can get into flow uh, dancing, playing a musical instrument, painting a picture, Even doing like advanced mathematics, some people get into flow, but it's flow states come about from real intense focus on a task that you really value and totally absorbs everything you're doing. And physical activity is one of the easiest ways to get into flow. And surfing in particular is kind of really set up for getting people into flow states. It's probably one of the best activities there is. But what's amazing about flow states, and so just to sort of clarify, flow is a state of consciousness where you feel your best, you perform at your best, you're totally at one with what you're doing. Some people call it effortless effort. And and colloquially, people would talk about being in the zone, and musicians would talk about being in the pocket, and runners would talk about runner's high, and artists will talk about being in flow. But this is what flow states are: is this unique place where you go into, where you're kind of it's almost like you merge with the activity at hand. You feel completely at one with it, and it kind of almost guides you. It has a very serene aspect to it. And when you come out of flow, usually you feel great. And so surfing is fantastic activity for that. But a lot of the therapeutic work I do isn't just using surfing as a means of doing. I often say to people, I don't do surf therapy. We use surfing to do better therapy afterwards. And you could do that with running. You could do that with hiking. You can do it with boulder. I've done it with bouldering. I've done it with even someone we did pickleball. But just and I've done it with people with painting. But it's any kind of activity that gets you into that kind of place of flow, and then we use the real benefits of flow to deepen and enhance a therapeutic change afterwards.
You also use EMDR. What is EMDR and how can it benefit people?
Yeah, that's a great question. So EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It's one of the gold standard treatments for PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and other conditions. It's very effective with OCD and depression. And it's a psychotherapy. It's a form of psychotherapy, an integrated form of psychotherapy that takes maladaptive, dysfunctional memory that causes and generates a lot of issues in people's presence. So let's just say that you have a memory of school bullying, that whenever you connect to it, it makes you sweat, it makes you upset, you get angry, you're clenching your fists, you want to avoid it, it doesn't do anything for you anymore. But it's really not, it has a negative impact on your life, but it's this memory from the past. And it helps. What EMDR does is it processes that memory and moves it from where it's stuck in the limbic system that keeps activating you, moves it to a place where it's becomes integrated and becomes just put in your past. So it's like a letting go process. And the mechanisms of it, there are ways of explaining that. But just in general, what it does is it takes unprocessed episodic memory and moves it into a narrative form. So which basically tells the brain and the body it's over now. And that's what partly when I was saying you can't think your way out of trauma, but you can act your way. And one of the ways is doing an EMDR process. So it's a very powerful form of psychotherapy that's highly evidence-based and recommended by NICE, which is the National Institute of Clinical Excellence in the NHS, the World Health Organization, the Veterans Association. It's like the gold standard, along with trauma-focused CBT for treating trauma.
And is there a specific technique that comes with EMDR? Like, what if someone sits in that chair? What do they actually do?
Yeah, so you're as I was saying, you're converting episodic memory to narrative memory through a process of what we call bilateral stimulation and dual attention. So it initially started what Dr. Francine Shapiro discovered in the 1980s, is that if you brought to mind something disturbing and you moved your eyes back and forth quite rapidly while holding that in mind, it did something. It reduced the charge of that memory and it desensitized it. That's hence the D in EMDR. But she also started to notice that also people reframe the event. So let's just say, like, you have this memory of being bullied and you tell yourself, I'm a real loser, I'm weak and I'm a loser. and it makes you very upset when you connect to this memory. And through this process of moving it from that episodic to narrative form with bilateral stimulation, she discovered that people were not just the charge of that memory was coming right down, but also the way people related to it, the meaning attached was changing. Instead of saying I'm a weak and I'm a loser, people were saying, well, I was just young, and like any kid who's 8 is going to be freaked out by 15-year-old bullying, and it doesn't actually say anything about me. It says something about the person doing it to me, and that's the reprocessing part. So it desensitizes and reprocesses what you're going through. But then she discovered, but EMDR become quite well known by then, and so she discovered that you didn't even have to use eye movements. You can use sound, you can use touch, you can use a combination of things at the same time. So you're taking this mixture of physical process and a lot of cognitive work at the same time, and it's very, very effective. I mean, you can make a profound difference to someone's life in about 6 sessions. And when this came on the scene, Dr. Shapiro was asked by people, like, well, what are we going to do with our clients? Like, if we're getting them well in 6 sessions, 6 to 8 sessions, instead of years, what are we going to do? And she said, they'll send their friends. It was really sad to hear that clinicians were talking in that way, not worrying about how it was going to affect them. It's a bit like if a doctor said, oh, well, if we have a cure for cancer, what am I going to do? We would say, well, cure the cancer and do something else, But so yeah, it's really interesting. So it desensitizes, it reprocesses, it allows people to basically make peace with things that have been very disturbing and troubling for them. And it's very, very powerful to facilitate and be a part of. And when you combine flow states with a powerful therapy like EMDR, you can really make huge difference in a very short amount of time.
What actually led you to this discovery? Is it personal experience, or how did you lead to this?
Yeah, so partly. So when I was about 31, 32, I gave up all drink and drugs and all of those sorts of things, and I got into recovery. And I'd studied psychology at university, but I was a musician for years, and so I really understood flow states from being a musician. And then when I used to be a skater, like you said, so I used to be a skater, and then I found guitars, and I found this feeling that was similar in all of these things. I didn't know it was called flow at the time. But so I had my own issues, and I fortunately, someone who was quite profound, is quite well known in the addiction recovery industry. This doctor called Dr. Robert Lefevre. He said to me, through I was attending this support group, he said, I think you'd be really good at this work, Josh. Come back in a year and I help start training you up in it. And he introduced me to EMDR because he was using it in his practice. And it's very well known. It's not like it's this secret. I think there's 50,000 EMDR practitioners in the UK. It's not like it's but it's can't be 50,000, but there's many thousands of EMDR clinicians in the country and people trained in it. So it's and so I noticed a lot of the things that I work with, I've noticed have been very effective with me. But I can't just take that. I can't just think, oh, if it worked for me, it's going to work for everybody. But I noticed it's been really helpful for me. And then I look and see, is it helpful for a lot of other people too? And then I start to see, is this something that could be universalized and made universal? And that's kind of, I've been using my own personal experience, other people's experience, and the evidence data that's out there, and try and combine all 3 of those into work that's really effective for people.
I've been well into my trekking and physical activity as something that really keeps me feeling good in my body, and relies almost on all the good hormones that are produced by it. You've actually spoke about Blue Health, and I was wondering what role water and nature plays in our health.
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. I mean, I know that there's a few things that people call there's something called the overview effect. So we like looking at horizons. Wide horizons are very good for the brain, and for the psyche. And for example, Blue Health, being in the water, like I often say, like I call surfing, for example, but it could be boogie boarding, it could be swimming in the waves, whatever it is, a form of forced mindfulness. So for 2 hours, I'm out surfing or other people are out surfing, for example, you can't really think of anything else, because if you don't, you're going to get battered around, and you could even drown if you're really like careless. But in general, it keeps you really fully focused in the present, and that's really good for people's health. I mean, that's for, if that's for some people, that's 2 hours of not worrying about your tax bill, or the state of your relationship, or am I going to get a promotion, or is AI going to wipe out my job, or whatever it is these days that people are worried about. It gives people a respite, and so I call it that, and makes people be present. And for some people, that's really difficult. So I think that there's a very strong therapeutic advantage to being in water in that sense. Now, other people talk about water has a calming effect on the nervous system. I think that's more in a sort of chilled out, like taking a bath type vibe. But that does activate the parasympathetic nervous system, so it does help relax. Also, just being connected to nature, being connected to things outside of yourself, outside of your like inner world, I think is very powerful for a lot of people, particularly if people are stuck in rumination. People are just constantly like can't switch their head off. So I think there's many ways. So like Blue Health is like a subset of just like green health in a way. Being out in the great outdoors. And my wife is Norwegian, and it's a huge part of Norwegian culture to spend a lot of time outdoors. I mean, they do have some of the most stunningly beautiful places to be outside in Norway. It's absolutely stunning. But it's a big part of culture out there, because I think people do it because they know how good it is for you.
They seem to know something that we don't. These countries like around there with all their saunas, and they like seem to be a bit more on it with health and just the overall cultural outlook on it. Do you think there's like cultural differences that we're born into a certain culture and some just naturally bring you up to be more healthy than others?
Yeah, I do. I do think that's true. I do think that places like Norway, they have that. I mean, they have their own issues. They have their own parts. We're very good at doing ourselves down in the UK. Actually, we're always, that is a cultural aspect of being British, is sort of putting yourself down all the time. There are really great things in the UK there are really great things about this country, but I would say health is not necessarily one of them. And but I do like the fact that it might sound strange to people, but actually the UK is quite progressive around mental health. So we're very embracing of things when it's introduced. So like, yeah, sauna wasn't a big part of the culture, but now that it's seeped in, everyone's doing culture, and it's not everyone's doing culture, everyone's doing sauna. It's like you see sauna boxes all over the country now, and they're opening up. I mean, there's a new place opening up just down the road here, and so we're pretty good at embracing things when we're introduced. I think is a good thing here. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, there are issues, but we're open to it. And also, but if you've got a country set up for skiing, hiking, and those kind of activities, you're going to ski and hike and do those activities, right? Whereas you don't have so much of that in the UK. And the UK is a very like populated country, so it's just different. But I definitely think, yeah, there's a lot to learn around health from Scandinavian countries in particular.
It's clear that a lot of what you do with Resurface and also your general approach to health is more holistic, with focus on community, nature, mind body connection. But whenever I've got a problem, I always feel like it's like one thing in particular that I need to fix. And you were listing as well, you got tax issues, relationship problems. It's so easy to just like focus on the one thing that you really need to fix. But how is it that all these different facets interact with each other when it comes to our life?
Yes, yeah. So I mean, there are definitely sometimes things that really need to be fixed, that high priority, like uh, getting a letter over to a lawyer, or signing that contract, or um, tracking down that medication today because it's running out, or there are things that really require focus. So it's a balance of understanding that there are certain things that really need to be focused upon and taken care of, while at the same time creating an environment of general kind of health and well-being. And I think it's balancing those, or not balancing those, acknowledging both of those at the same time is really important. It's like the big difference between negative and positive emotions. Like, if you understand that all emotions are good, a lot of people think, oh, if I'm having a negative emotion, I'm doing something wrong. Negative emotions are there to drive focus onto a specific thing. So if I'm really anxious, my whole body language changes. I go inwards and I really focus on needing to do that thing. Yeah. And then I do it, and then I feel better. Right. And positive emotions are all about opening you up, bringing information in, allowing you to integrate and be creative. And so I think a lot of the work is about allowing both of those things to be running in parallel. It's like when I was talking about earlier about clearing out the past and generating something great for the future. Now, people do think, oh, if I just fix this thing and then everything's going to be okay. And sometimes it's, if I fix this thing, everything is much, much better. But you have to have tools for the moment. And you also need, it's like you go to the gym to stay fit, don't you? So there's general fitness, and I would say there's general psychological fitness. And that's why doing all these things is really important, because it helps you with your general psychological fitness. And then there are certain things we need to do in the moment that are absolutely crucial as well. Is that, I don't know,
Yeah.
I went off on a bit of a rant. I'm not sure if I answered your question though.
No, yeah, absolutely. I think there are some things, and we all know this. There are those things in life where it's like you need to fix that now because that is a major issue, particularly when it comes to tangible things like money and debt and tax. It's like you
Yeah.
really need to sort this out. You've got an issue. What I'm interested in is how a lot of the external events that happen in our life become internalized. And you've spoken about past trauma being stored in the body.
Yeah.
This is the exact same teaching I got, by the way, in a Buddhist meditation retreat that I did. It's called a Vipassana meditation. This is 10 days of silence.
Silent retreats. Yeah.
Yes. And in that time, I have really vivid early childhood memories that came out of nowhere that I was totally not conscious of at the time, of rejection and hurt and pain. And I was wondering, so I believe it that trauma is definitely stored in the body because that's my own experience.
Yeah.
But how is it that it actually gets stored within the body?
We often say it's a bit of a metaphor to say it's stored. What we're really saying is that when you connect to trauma, your nervous system responds in a way that's very, very like vivid in the body. So like I bet you, when you were doing that Vipassana retreat, I bet those memories started coming up at about day 3 and day 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hear this time and time again when people do Vipassana retreats, that a lot of stuff starts to come up. And when you connect to that, it just goes to show, and this is something that I would have helped answer earlier, is that we are not, we are a complete integration of mind and body. They're not separated in any way. And this big philosophical thing called dualism that's been around particularly since Descartes is not very helpful when it comes to psychological health, for splitting off the mind from the body. Totally integrated. And so therefore you need to take care of all of you. It's like I often used to say to people, you've got to take care of your body because that's where you live. It's like, and your body, everything in our mind comes from either thoughts that we have internally or stuff outside of us that we integrate and put together. Now, if you're having traumatic, you're connecting to traumatic data, traumatic memories like you were describing there, you are going to have certain thoughts that accompany that as well, judgments about yourself. and that's going to activate your nervous system. You're going to and you might, if it's shame that's coming up, then you're going to have that real ugh in the stomach. If it's anger coming up, you might really feel it in your hands and your head. So there is this, there is no, all our emotions are driven by thinking, thoughts that we've made, prior judgments that we've made, and they're experienced in the body. Now, if you're connecting to traumatic data, you're going to have opinions and judgments around that. What's happened? Oh, I really want to get that guy, or oh, isn't it awful that I was abandoned, and I'm really sad about it, and it makes my throat well up. And so that's what we mean by it being stored in the body. Is like that it's not like, oh, I think of these things and I have no emotional or physical response. They're totally integrated. So if I'm bringing up those memories, and I'm bringing up that information, my body is going to be responding to it too. And that's what we mean by being stored in the body. It's not like you get hit with a sledgehammer and then it's everything about that stays in that one spot or something. It's more about its effect on your nervous system is always going to be the same until you change it, till you process it. And that's what we mean by it being stored in the body.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yes. So we're one thing, we're one connected thing, and it's the nervous system that is like our storage.
Yeah. Well, it's all stored in our brain, and then when it gets reactivated, our whole nervous system responds in a certain way. You get a knock on the door, and you see through the peephole it's the police. What's your reaction?
Fear.
Fear. And where do you feel that fear?
My heart.
Yeah. Oh, so you probably feel it around there, and
my chest.
Yeah, you get all of that going on, right? And why would that be happening? Why would you have that response to the police?
Maybe I'm in trouble and therefore there might be a threat.
The police tend to come round, don't they? Because either you're in trouble or they're going to give you bad news. Yeah. So you have those judgments as well that generate a lot of physical responses. So it's this total integration between your mind and body that generates those strong feelings. And so that's why we have to work on all of it.
You've spoken about abandonment trauma that you experienced in your childhood. What was happening at that time in your life as a boy?
Well, so my parents split up when I was about 2, and I ended up living with my grandparents for about 3.5 years. So just kind of very mixed up about where I was living. So like my parents lived together in Norfolk, and then they split up, and then I ended up living with my grandparents in Yorkshire for a while, and then we moved to London, back to down to London, where I've lived pretty much ever since. But so there was just like I didn't see my dad for a while, and he passed away nearly 2 years ago now, and I know when I was speaking to him when he was dying, he said, there were times when I didn't get to see you much, and so there was kind of abandonment in that sense of just like not much strength, not much consistency of care. That might be a way of describing it.
Yeah. I've had friends who have been to boarding school. I didn't go myself, but none of them have a good story about when they first arrive. And they all say, that feeling of being a young boy, you're vulnerable anyways. And now you're alone and you don't have your mum's hand to hold or whatever it was. It seems like it's never a good story.
Well, boarding school I went to boarding school, but I went when I was 10, 11. And I think 11, 10 or 11. So I didn't get sent away at like 7 or 8. And, every year kind of counts when you're there. But, and a lot of people being, sent off really young is really, really difficult because, you go from the care of a loving home, or you'd hope a loving home, and into a place where teachers and people can't give you the attention that that a parent would give just by numbers wise. It's like 1 to 30 or something. So even if you had the most benign carers in the world, it's just not enough. So yeah, I think it's pretty tough. It often doesn't work out well. There are exceptions. The exceptions are some people's home life is so awful that school is a safer place for them. So maybe they've grown up in a violent or alcoholic home, something like that, and school can be a bit more of a safe place. And having friends, some people, having big friendship groups and stuff was really beneficial for them. I would say on the whole, boarding school, particularly when sent away young, is uh, not ideal. But there's also a lot of data to show that people who, like, maybe they're a really fantastic musician, fantastic artist, fantastic at sport, and they go at say 13, 14, that can be amazing for people. It can actually be really beneficial. So I think the age is really crucial when you go and the reasons why. But I think for a lot of people, being ripped out of the heart of home, you know, as a little boy or a little girl can be very difficult for people.
Was there a point in your life, like an exact moment, where you realized that you had abandonment trauma?
Yeah, about 28, 29 years after the event. Yeah,
Wow.
I say that because I didn't really think about it. But then in my early 30s, when you start that's when I started turning my life around. You look into it and like you start to realize that like when your girlfriend doesn't message you or whatever it is, it's actually not because she hasn't messaged you. It's partly because you didn't know if someone was coming back earlier on in your life, or these things compound. So these things only become conscious when you shine a light on them, and then you make the judgment of, did this affect me or didn't it affect me, or is someone just saying this and like it all sounds like really hokey, or is it? And then you have to make that judgment of like, actually, do you know what, I did act in ways that showed that maybe I had issues with abandonment. I've never really thought about it before. Like I became very, what is called, anti-dependent for a while. So I would just like think I just totally rely on myself. Well, why would you do that if you've got people who can help you and you can just have like a nice, healthy relationship with people? Or maybe I did that to protect myself, or maybe I thought I couldn't rely on people. Or so there's you come to a lot of this work. You realize things retrospectively. You don't think, oh, you know, why was I acting out in that way when I was 18? Oh, wouldn't that make sense to me now? I was doing that because blah 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 blah. Blah. But at the time, you're not conscious of that. You're just like mucking around or being silly or whatever it is.
And now you are where you are with your
Yeah.
experiences, and you look back and try to connect the dots. Is there a clear connection between the childhood you had and why you ended up becoming a psychologist?
I think there's a big part of it is like my own experience and seeing, like I come from a huge family. There's a lot of dysfunction in the family. I got 23 first cousins. We're not Catholic. Everybody in my family seemed to get remarried, divorced, remarried, had more kids. There's quite a bit of addiction and alcoholism in branches of my family. Um, my my dad's dad died when my dad was 9 months old, so he had a lot of issues himself around that. And there's so it's interested me. I've also really interested, always have been interested in philosophy, and there's a big overlap between psychology and philosophy. And yeah, so I think my environment and trying to understand some of the craziness in my life has definitely been part of it. I also just I found biology and science in general pretty interesting. So there's that angle. So I think, yeah, there's definitely big aspects of that to why I ended up doing what I'm doing. But I also just love the process. I love learning about the mind and why people do things and ways of improving. So yeah, I think there's, I was really drawn to aspects of flow when I was younger, like playing musical instruments, skateboarding, playing football. Could never really get into flow in rugby or cricket, but I definitely got into flow playing football, playing the drums, playing the guitar. So I think, and then when I understood that this was a real science behind all of that, that drew me more into um, psychology as well. So I think it's a mixture of the things I was really interested in and aspects of my own experience as well came together. Um, Yeah.
And of course, you're not just a psychologist, you're also a founder. And now this is
Yeah.
selfishly a question I wanted to ask you, because that journey of being an entrepreneur, I think anyone who has given it a go will agree it's not the most conducive to great mental health. It's a extremely unique way to choose to spend your life, to build a business. So I was wondering, how is it that you sort of stay happy, or not stay happy, but maintain some level of consistency in your life? Because in my experience, I feel just constant overwhelmment. There's always more to do. There's more to build, more to grow the whole time. So what do you do to ride that journey?
So if I was, there's two ways of answering that. One is just the simple way is I practice what I preach. So I do elements of breath work. I bought an infrared sauna blanket. I try and hydrate. I try and sleep well. I do lots of things to try and look after myself and keep resilience up. I also have learned that I need to have really specific, clear goals. When I have specific, clear goals, it's quite easy. And when I don't, that's when I find it really difficult. Learning to delegate, it's been really, really important as a founder. And I over delegated at one point as well and got quite burned that way. And so it's about, you know, understanding. I love the much more American attitudes towards business of let's break things and see what happens. Failure is a good thing sometimes. Yeah, the European model is you have to get it right first time, otherwise give up. Whereas you're learning from your mistakes, taking risks, all of that, but also really valuing what it is I do is absolutely crucial, and the rewards from it make it all worth it. So it can be very detrimental to your mental health, but it also can be the most rewarding thing to your mental health. The setting of goals and achieving those goals is the root of all self-esteem, good self-esteem. Um, it's great for resilience. It's great for self-reliance. It's fascinating. And also what I'm finding absolutely made a huge difference for me recently is AI. AI is making it so much easier to keep on top of those things that you were describing of so much coming in. Particularly, I'm obsessed with Claude Cowork at the moment. It's just made everything so much easier. Like I've got it connected to my emails every morning. I go, hey, what have I missed? Because when I'm really busy, we have something called working memory, and our working memory is limited. It's how much we can hold in mind at any one time. And when you're really busy, it gets filled up. I made a big mistake. I went off to the airport with some keys the other day, and so I wanted to send the keys back, and because I was in like totally full up, I put the wrong postcode on, and things like that. So it was just like, and that was because I was just too full up, and so sometimes things slip through the cracks, and I'm not at the stage where I can have a whole team of people to catch that. So I'm finding AI amazing at doing that. As I said, like every morning, I'm like, who do I need to reply to today? Have I missed anything? What's the urgency? What's the priority? And it's like having this person to bounce off all the time. And I'm finding that really, really amazing for productivity. But also all the work I know about productivity through coaching and psychology and psychotherapy has been invaluable as a founder. Um, Learning to listen to other people, getting my count, like for one thing that I used to find really stressful all the time was accounts and counting and invoicing and all of that. And getting help for that now has been amazing. There's amazing software that can do these sorts of things. So getting round to it, it's just like, wow, like my team at the moment is really a team of two, maybe three. And we're so much more efficient and on it now than when there were like 10 of us all over the place. It was a nightmare, very expensive. And now yeah, but I would say to be able to have the motivation to keep going as a founder is you have to have clear goals. And one of the most important things I learned, which has been really helpful, is the concept of a massive transformative purpose, an MTP. and developing your MTP. There's great things online that can help you with this. But I got this from Peter Diamandis and his crew, and that has made. And Stephen Kotler spoke about this a lot. That anything you're doing, if it's not in service of your MTP, ditch it immediately, even if it sounds interesting. So I used to fall into the trap of, why don't we set up a podcast? We can do this and you can do that. And would you like to do Resurface with this? And would you like to go? And then when I realized that that's not, I found that when things that are cool and interesting, but they're not serving the fundamental purpose, it just gets in the way and slows everything down. So learning how to be ruthless around the business, like the goal of the business. If your goal is to teach people to swim and someone says, hey, do you want to teach people to cycle? In the past, I go, oh, that's cool. Yeah, that we could add that to it. But actually, no, sorry, my goal is just to teach people to swim. And I know a great guy, Jake's brilliant at teaching people to ride a bike. Go speak to Jake, and learning how to do that, because there just isn't enough time. And if you really want to make something succeed, you've got to put all your focus into that thing. And I've had to learn that the hard way.
Focus.
Yeah.
That's something I think people with a lot of ideas struggle with. And for you, learning the hard way, what was that journey? What was the experience that led to that lesson?
Just primarily, like, it was not keeping on top of things. I mean, I have a great excuse that my dad was dying, but so I did a lot of over delegated. And so I learned that way as well. As like, it's all very well saying, oh, X is doing this and Y is doing that, it'd be taken care of. You do have to overlook. And that's actually why I'm finding the AI really helpful, because it kind of overlooks, but you can just, but you're not sort of offending anyone when you do it. And also just like just take, for example, Google ads. I'm never doing Google ads again. You just burn your money through that. If you haven't done the proper preparation with that, you can burn through money in seconds. So I've made very valuable things about what works in particular and doesn't for my particular business.
You've spoken about your wife, Christine. Yeah. You've described her before as your rock. What role does she play in your life and on that turbulent entrepreneur journey?
Well, she is quite good at like right sizing things. It's funny because she's definitely much more of a worrier than I am. So I don't get as worried as she does, and she gets anxious about things. And I think she would be much more reticent about things, but she also gets much more fired up than I do about certain things as well. So it's a great balance. Like, if she senses that someone's ripping off an idea of mine, or taking the piss in any way, she's the one who will say, hey, I don't think that's okay, you should do something about this. Where I'm like, oh yeah, let it slide. So it's actually a really great counter. She's a doctor, she's a GP. She was an obstetrician and gynecologist, but she's also trained in quite a lot of different forms of yoga. She used to do a lot of the yoga on the retreat. She's also the mother of my children. So, she's a great like counterfoil with this work in a good way. Yeah.
It's amazing, isn't it, when you have that partner with you? Like I've been with my girlfriend for now nearly 10 years, and I feel like it's massively understated, like what a role having that partner in your life can play in going on and doing great things in your life. It seems to be somewhat overlooked. We look at a lot of people's achievements in this individual basis, but yet we kind of maybe look past all the people around that individual.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think also it's important to acknowledge that that's very true. Like in your case, in my case, if your goals and values align, it can be the opposite. I've seen so many people torn apart because their partner is not on board, and they keep trying to satisfy their partner, but they never can because they're not on board. But also just to acknowledge that, yes, we need all these people around us, but just to say to you, you need to acknowledge to yourself that you made great decisions in being with that person, investing in the relationship, that you attracted certain people in your life as well. It's like, All of these things are at play.
Mm.
So I'm often trying to help people see that yeah, your wife has been amazing for you, and also your girlfriend's been amazing for you, and well done you for having a great girlfriend or wife, and vice versa, or in any partnerships.
It's been really amazing chatting to your experience, like personally, but also how you're able to back that up with your just insatiable enthusiasm and wanting to study into it. One last question I wanted to
Yeah.
finish on was actually kind of flipping the other side of the table or whatever it is onto you, and
Yeah.
that's to ask what role therapy plays in your own life.
So journaling is a really important part of what I do. So as a therapist myself, I have a lot of supervision. So I have like 4 or 5 hours a month of supervision, where it's where I go and see another therapist and we talk about our cases. But a lot of supervision is very therapeutic. So I have that. Certain mutual support groups are really important for my own mental health and well-being. Yoga classes, running, getting into flow as much as I can, going out surfing for myself. So like uh, I try and make sure that I'm doing some of these activities as much as possible. I read a lot of books. I love those kind of airport self-help book sections. There's a lot of great value in a lot of those books. So a lot of that really helps me. And I listen to a lot of podcasts. I speak to other friends who are like therapists and psychologists, and we kind of help each other out. So yeah, it's kind of, it's not like the journey is ongoing, both on both sides of the table, as you said, and you have to keep moving forward. I think everybody has to keep moving forward psychologically anyway, but you, as a clinician, you need to keep moving forward in your own therapeutic journey as much as helping other people with their journeys.
Yeah, I must admit it's deeply refreshing to speak to a psychologist who knows so much, talk about personal struggles that they're going through, because I think I naively feel like there's this kind of status, because like Josh is a psychologist and he knows all about this and he must be just like super happy the whole time, like A-OK. But then we are actually just all human
Well,
and going through it.
it's a bit like what I learned about fitness, because for a long time, I wasn't that fit. I wasn't like really unfit, and I wasn't like overweight or unhealthy, but I just wasn't particularly fit. And when I started really getting into surfing, I learned that y- you have to be fit to stand a chance to do anything. So I've got fit, and I thought that when you get really fit, you you just wouldn't get tired. But it's not that. What happens is I find I'm almost get as tired as easy as when I started. It's how quickly I recover. So back in the day, getting out back in the waves would be exhausting. And when I got out there, I'd be exhausted. Now I get out there, I feel exhausted for a minute or two, but then I bounce back. And it's very much like that with psychological fitness. I still have all the same reactions as other people do and all that, but I have a lot of training in knowing how to bring myself back to a sort of state of equilibrium. So that's what I'm very grateful for. And that's what I put a lot of work into. But I think that analogy really works. Is yeah, I get upset and I get annoyed in traffic and I do all these sorts of things, but I'm able to sort of bounce back from that. In the same way that learning that fitness was almost about how quickly you recover as much as anything else. And I think that's one of the advantages I think I do have is I recover back from things maybe a little quicker than the average.
Now, for anyone who's made it this far into the conversation, it shows that they're clearly bloody engaged with what you're saying and what you do. So maybe it's worth just letting people know, what can people expect from Resurface? What do you do with the people that come on board?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So Resurface, we provide at the moment three, and we're going to launch a fourth pillar to it. But at the moment, we provide group retreats, therapeutic program retreats for people either struggling with trauma or people who want to reset in their life. So we have the trauma resolution retreats and we have the reset retreats, and these are open for about 10 to 12 people at a time. You get to work with me and a couple of other clinicians, and that involves surfing, yoga, group therapy, psychoeducation, non-sleep, deep rest, deep relaxation in a group format. And it's like having a really fun holiday that also it has a real deep and meaningful aspect to it at the same time. I do these one-on-one intensives where I work with someone just really intensely, just me and them for a week. That involves often a lot of EMDR, HRV training, which stands for heart rate variance training, one-on-one surf lessons, like just an integrated package. And then I also run a team of therapists. So those people who are just looking for one-to-one help, I have a team that I case manage and supervise. And then we're about to launch this year, hopefully in the next quarter, so Q2 this year, a training program for people who are interested in learning more. They may be a clinician, they may be a psychologist, they may be a counselor, they may be a yoga teacher, they may be a volunteer in a charity, but they want to learn how to introduce everything that I've put together into a coherent, integrated program, and how to set yourself up to use flow states, movement, action, sports, all these sorts of things and bring it into a therapeutic space. And we're going to be launching that relatively soon.
Josh, thank you very much for coming on to the podcast. It's been great for me to be able to merge these two worlds, where I had in my head therapies in this sort of white, bland room where it's all quite serious. And then you've managed to coordinate that with all my love and experiences for flow and surfing and being outdoors and being with community. And you seem to have found that beautiful intersection between the two. So thank you so much for everything in the podcast and everything that you've learned and your own experiences. And thanks for coming on.
It's been my pleasure. And also, I love it when people reach out. I reply to everyone's emails. So if you do want to contact me, I'm sure my contact details will be in the notes. And therapeutic healing, the therapy journey can be really fun at the same time. And that's, I think, really important. I think people really need to know that it's not about being miserable in a stale room with horrible lighting. It's about sitting in a super comfy chair. It's about that it's real possible to have a very deeply and profound experience that's also fun and joyful at the same time.
Yeah, and I'll also leave contact details for Josh in the description. So if you do have any questions, then get in touch. Thanks a lot, Josh.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.